Today is the deadline for the Kansas City Chiefs to sign franchise tag guard Trey Smith, and if they don't get it done, they could ruin their chance to get back to the Super Bowl. We'll explain on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's show, we're going to talk about who is the fifth best quarterback in the NFL. Also, are the top four all catching up to Patrick Mahomes? And we'll stay on the Kansas City Chiefs to start the show because today is the deadline to get a long-term deal done with franchise tag guard Trey Smith, and there could be other dominoes for the Chiefs there. Before we dive into all of it, though, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Today is the deadline for franchise tag players to get a long-term deal done with their team. And there's one player in the NFL that is currently franchise tag, and that's Trey Smith, the all-pro guard from the Kansas City Chiefs. And whether or not Trey Smith's deal gets done seems very isolated, but it actually could create a domino effect for the Chiefs that could limit them financially, not only just this year, but next year. To explain, I'll throw it to my guy, Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs.
Do I think they get a deal done with Trey Smith? I do think they get something done, so it probably will be a much better situation for Kansas City in 2025 than what I'm thinking it is right now. But the reality is that they need to be trying to figure out how they can get a little bit more cap space if they're not able to get a deal done with Trey Smith, because if they can't, they're not going to have any room to be able to maneuver. The other reality of this is that's assuming you don't make any other player signings or extensions before the season starts, and that is definitely possible. We've talked about maybe trying to get a deal done with George Karlaftis, Trey McDuffie, possibly Leo Chenal. Those are some of the names that I would expect that they could be trying to get a deal done with. But I think that the Trey Smith deal comes in first and foremost. The one guy that they have the potential of getting a little bit of salary cap space from would be Jawaan Taylor. I don't think that they want to go that direction, because if they get salary cap space from Jawaan Taylor, that's something that would carry forward into 2026. I don't think he's going to be here in 2026. So that is a move I would not expect Kansas City to want to make. It's a move that they may have to make if they can't get a deal done, but that is something that is possible. They could reduce his cap number, because right now it's at $27.4 million for Jawaan Taylor in 2025, because they have adjusted his contract the first 2 years. So it's possible they do it a third year. I guarantee you it's something that they do not want to do. But at this point, they're going to have to try to find money if they can't get a deal done with Trey Smith.
It seems very difficult in what they would be able to do. And obviously, as Chris explained, they would have to make decisions they don't necessarily want to make. So I personally think they're kind of in a situation where they have no choice but to get the deal done. I think Trey Smith probably has a ton of good leverage on them right now, and after losing a Super Bowl, they need to bounce back anyway. So I think this is a deal that does get done by the deadline.
Yeah, this feels like something they kind of locked themselves into when they may use the franchise tag decision. Like, it reminds me a little bit of the T. Higgins situation in Cincinnati for a while, where we're like, why would you push this off so long and not trade him when you had the opportunities or whatever, if you weren't planning on giving him the long-term deal? Like, for me, they made this decision when they traded Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
That was them saying, all right, Trey Smith is our long-term plan here. We're losing a really good guard in Thuney, but they had, Kingsley Sumata to be the future there. So they kind of had to pick between Thuney or Trey Smith. They picked Trey Smith. So now you can't change your mind and not give him the extension.
Yeah, and he has him over a barrel with that regard. It's not only is it just his deal on its own, but how it impacts everything else. And you look around, And it seems like teams are really, really focused on fortifying the interior for their quarterbacks and giving Mahomes a strong pocket, because pressure coming up the middle, there's not much you can do about that. When it's coming off the edges, quarterbacks can move around and things like that. But I think Trey Smith is in a great position to get paid here. I think he should get paid. I think this is something that, it's funny because we're recording the show, it comes out in the morning, comes out at midnight. By the time that you hear this, the deal could already be out. It could come out at 9, 10 in the morning, 8 in the morning. You never know. But I think this is something that does need to get done. I found it interesting that he's the only player in the NFL that is currently on the franchise tag. There's a great chance here that nobody plays on the franchise tag this year. And with all of the, I guess, conversation about the NFL finances and everything that's going on right now, you wonder if the franchise tag might be kind of a dying thing. Like if the NFL has to kind of acquiesce a little to the Players Association, if they could maybe get this franchise tag thing out of here, because it's so bad for the players. It has the potential to ruin their value, and it keeps them in limbo. And for these teams, when you play on the franchise tag, that's the whole salary guaranteed as a cap hit. It doesn't give them a lot of opportunity. So I feel like the franchise tag doesn't help teams as much as it seems like it does either.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder, like, if maybe there's some loose connection here to some of the, the conversations around the collusion stuff with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It feels like the free agent market has become a lot less volatile. We don't have the Christian Kirk wide receiver contract was kind of the thing that blew everything up. But like since then, like, teams and players are kind of slotting into salary areas where you don't get this big disagreement on like, oh, well, I think I'm worth this, and you think you're worth that. So they get so far apart on these deals, at least for guys that are going to hit free agency. Like these things happen with Trey Hendrickson or TJ Watt, like before, they would hit free agency when they're seeking a deal ahead of time. But when it comes to guys at the end of their rookie contracts that are then looking for a big deal, there seems to be more alignment league wide. And like, all right, yeah, we kind of generally all agree, whether it's intentional or not, that this is what these players at these ages are worth.
Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of alignment, and it makes you wonder how this alignment is so clear and so obvious, and maybe it's not something that we have to wonder about so much anymore. But I talked about some of this stuff on yesterday's show when we talked about the second-round rookies and everything that's going on with second-round rookie contracts and how only 2 of the second-round rookies are signed. They got their fully guaranteed deals, and now teams don't want to do that. And you look at Nick Amonwari as the next one in line. He was pick 35, and then pick 36, I do believe, was Quinshon Judkins. Now, how could he go to the table after his situation? So all of these things are kind of in the stew of what's going on behind the scenes that maybe some fans wouldn't necessarily be paying attention to, but it is sort of relatively connected.
It's amazing that like everything, like if there's one aspect of football contracts that we know is like really, really locked in and hasn't been a controversy, it's rookie contracts since that CBA. And yet that's the one area where they couldn't collude properly well enough. Like Nick Cassero and the Texans just decided to break from ranks, and it's throwing everybody into a big loop. But like, yet somehow the franchise tag has become less controversial and less disagreement and less holdout than second round pick rookie contracts.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's definitely a weird time in the NFL, and if you don't feel weird enough already, looks like Patrick Mahomes might be losing his grip a little bit on the number 1 quarterback ranking. We'll explain right now. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, we've all been there. You're logging on early. You're waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you were dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Look, Game Time has the best features in the industry, whether it's their zone deals, you get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, you get no hidden fees, the Game Time guarantee. It's why I buy all my tickets on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Lauren, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Talked about the Trey Smith situation, but we're going to stay with the Chiefs because ESPN's been doing their top 10 rankings, and we got the Locked On NFL Top 100 coming out tomorrow, so make sure that you guys check that out. But ESPN does their top 10 rankings every year, and they finally put out their quarterbacks, and of course, as expected, Patrick Mahomes is number one. No doubt about it, he's number one, but I say no doubt about it, and maybe there is a little bit of doubt about it because Mahomes' lowest ranking was actually number 4, and previously he had a large grip on the first overall votes, like for the number 1 player. Wasn't the case this year. He actually only got about 60% of the first place votes. So he's lost a little bit of his standing there, even if he still sits at number 1. Lauren, just first and foremost, do you think it's even logical to consider that maybe one of the other top guys in the league could be better than Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, no, but I understand when we're sort of nitpicking between the best of the best and elite quarterbacks. Like, you look at Mahomes this past season, career low in passing yards as a starting quarterback over the course of a year. Like, yeah, you can point to like individual reasons why maybe someone could come up with a way to doubt him a little bit. But like, it's not as though at 29, like he became a worse quarterback, even if the passing numbers are a little bit lower. So to me, there's not anything that like he's tier 1, and then like tier 1A is when you get to Allen and Burrow and Lamar Jackson, but like they're not like Josh Allen's not like about to surpass him as that true number 1 for me.
Yeah, I don't buy that either. And I think a big thing with Mahomes is there is some fatigue. He's just been so good for so long that it's not as exciting anymore. People aren't as excited to talk about it, and that kind of gets it. But there's also been a lack of exciting plays. He's been more of a guy who's just managing things recently because the way that they're being played. And that's something that literally they just discussed on the Locked On Chiefs podcast as well, talking about how Mahomes can kind of get back to that level per se.
I mean, there is definitely, between Patrick and Andy Reid talking about the fact that they want to be pushing the ball more downfield. And it's not simply just taking more shots. It's not about getting the deep ball back. I mean, Chiefs would love to have that, but they want to get away from what last year turned into, and really maybe the last couple of seasons turned into, which has been, Mahomes being more game manager and checking things down and kind of taking what's being given. I mean, it's been circumstance that's forced the Chiefs to do that. I mean, they've had so many injuries the last couple of years. Things didn't work out the way that they designed either of the last couple of seasons. But now I think what the emphasis is that they're planning for the best.
And that's what I think would kind of flip this back, is if the Chiefs got back to more explosive plays, and maybe, a healthier wide receiver group this year will help. But I'm still not convinced that the Chiefs offensive line is very good, especially that left tackle position. And we don't know what's going to happen with that left guard position, having 2 big question marks on the blind side of Patrick Mahomes. Like, I think he's been affected by the increased pressure the last few years. So that's a big question mark, but the weapons should be better this year just based on luck, like they just can't be as injured as they were last year.
It's just crazy to me that, like, you take a step back. We're talking about a quarterback who went 15-1 and went to the Super Bowl this year. And like, I don't think you're wrong, the things you were saying, but like, it feels stupid when we're like, that guy that only lost 1 game until the Super Bowl. Well, maybe he's not as good as he used to be, despite, I mean, and we know, like, in reality that those games were a lot closer and they got lucky and all these different things. But at the same time, it's like, man, in some ways, what more does he have to do? Does he have to win a 3rd Super Bowl in a row? Like, he's not good enough because he didn't get the 3-peat. The 2 in a row just wasn't enough. So he lost the 1. Now he's on his way back down.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think the reality is we could talk about the little individual details and things, but he's still the best quarterback in the league. And I don't really see him not being the best quarterback in the league until he's probably done with the league. It could be like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning situation where they're just absolutely incredible until the end. I mean, Peyton Manning, those Broncos years at the end really, really took a toll, obviously, but Brady was great basically the entire time. Now, Lauren, I do have to ask this. If you had to pick one of the other big four quarterbacks. Obviously, you may have Mahomes, but pretty much everybody seems to be in agreement that the next three is some combination of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. If you had to pick one, if we're doing the fantasy draft of the NFL right now, and you got to play this season with a quarterback, and Mahomes goes one, who are you taking number two, or who do you think maybe could beat out Patrick Mahomes if someone did it?
Yeah, so we're sort of taking these players independent of their current teams and current situations, and we're moving them into some some new presumably would do well with them. Like,
right.
To me, it's Lamar Jackson in that case. Like, I don't think in reality on the Ravens he would be my number two. I mean, I still like Josh Allen there too, but like the quarterback for me that I think, boy, if you could get him in a more explosive offense with better weapons and everything, all the kind of things we've talked about Lamar Jackson for years, like I still think he's got all the passing acumen plus more of a rushing ability than any of those other three quarterbacks that I think he could absolutely be maybe the more quote unquote talented quarterback, but he's not going to get there comparatively based on where the Ravens are and have been compared to the Chiefs and the Bills and even the Bengals.
Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking about this in a different way, but I think about it of like the all-time standings. If you ranked all the quarterbacks all time, which of the three quarterbacks behind Mahomes would jump the most if they were to win? And it's Lamar Jackson. Like, he has the most pelts on the wall outside of the playoff winning. So if Lamar Jackson could win a Super Bowl this year, I think next year you could see Lamar Jackson as number one and Patrick Mahomes drop to number two. So I think I think if Josh Allen won it or Joe Burrow won a Super Bowl this year, I don't know that they would vault over Patrick Mahomes, but I think Lamar has enough that he's done prior to that it could vault him over it. Do you see the way, I'm not saying the way you're looking at it's wrong. Yeah. That's just the way I am looking at it.
Because I was, as you started that, I was thinking like, if Josh Allen won the next two Super Bowls in a row, I think he would be viewed as at Patrick Mahomes' level, if not above Patrick Mahomes' level. But then if Lamar Jackson won the next two Super Bowls in a row, like, because to me, it feels like Lamar has a greater perception gap to clear, right? Like, people already view Allen as like probably the closest to Mahomes. And so he has less room, less ground to have to gain. But yet at the same time, you're right that like Lamar has been more accomplished in everything but the playoffs. So if you add like the main thing he's been missing,
if you just put it on, then it just like complete, it's like one of those Megazords from the Power Rangers, like they all got the little, but once you stick them together, all of a sudden it's this crazy thing bigger than the sum of its parts. I think Lamar with a championship, if Lamar wins the next two championships versus if Josh Allen won the next two, I think Lamar would be ranked higher after those events than Josh Allen. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think so. I think he would get a bigger boost from that. Even though he has more to gain, I think he also gains more somehow at the same time. and it's funny that like somehow in this whole conversation, like Joe Burrow is the only other one of these quarterbacks that's even been that far before. And yet, well, it does feel like he's in a distant third, despite from a playoff standpoint being more accomplished he's won a conference championship game before that even Josh Allen has not.
Yeah, 100%. Now, here's the thing. We talk about these top four quarterbacks so much. They are the clear top four quarterbacks. But something Lauren and I were discussing before we came on the show is who is the fifth best quarterback in the NFL? Is that the most fun question in the NFL right now? I don't know, but it's going to be fun either way, and we're going to give our answers. All right, Lauren, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Trey Smith tag deadline situation, Patrick Mahomes and where he stands amongst the quarterbacks right now and kind of how things are going. But I want to go outside of that because we know who the top four quarterbacks in the NFL are. Who is number five? Who is number five? You're probably going to get 5 different answers if you ask 5 different people. You're going to ask 2 different people, and we'll see what the answers you get there is. Before we dive in, though, I do want to remind you, we're talking about rankings and all of that. The Locked On NFL Top 100 will be released on Wednesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern on Locked On Sports Today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL hosts of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. But Lauren, this is really, really difficult, and I'll tell you the truth. My mind changes all the time. I'll have a different answer every single week. But as we get closer to training camp and things kicking off, I looked at it as if I had to take one of these if I had one game and my life is on the line and I need a quarterback, and I can't have one of the top 4 of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I can't have any of those 4. I'm taking the Super Bowl champion with the experience, Matthew Stafford. That is who I'm going to take. He's got the ring. He's got the talent. And according to, Locked On Rams, he might be gearing up to get a second ring.
Stafford, man, do I appreciate Matthew Stafford more today than I did yesterday, and I already appreciate him more than ever. Well, that's because uber talented, has a Super Bowl, and is hungry to win another one. And if you look at the Rams roster and the talent around him, you could easily make the case that this is his best supporting cast since they won the Super Bowl in 2021. And ESPN's Bill Barnwell, he puts out his list of best supporting cast, and he has the Rams supporting cast as a top 5 group in 2025.
I mean, it's hard to argue against that with all the talent that they have. I think Matthew Stafford in the playoffs last year showed that he's still a high level quarterback. He was absolutely on a run. If the aliens are coming and I can't have the top 4, give me Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, if it's one game, give me the experienced veteran guy who still has a lot left in the tank. Like, you're not going to fool him defensively. You're not going to throw some coverage or blitz that he's not ready for, isn't picked up. Like, just between the ears, plus he still has all the physical ability. Like, yeah, he's the one game guy, and maybe even like one season. But beyond that, that's the challenge with ranking quarterbacks, right? Because it's like, okay, well, because of course, if you were drafting quarterbacks or building a franchise or whatever, like, Jaden Daniels is absolutely going to be picked before Matthew Stafford for the long-term foreseeable future. And for some people, even the short-term future. And I think there's a big debate right now on like how much people expect Jaden Daniels to step back versus keep going. And I think I land somewhere in the middle where it's like, people also assume like, oh, he's going to get even better and he'll probably be about the same. And that's great. That's a perfectly fine thing, but I'm not necessarily trusting even the best of the rookie quarterbacks last season, a second-year quarterback in a big-time situation like that versus an established veteran that like, it's no slight on Jaden Daniels to say that Matthew Stafford has a bit more experience on him, and maybe you can the track record is just more to be able to trust him there. And honestly, Justin Herbert, I think, belongs in this conversation too. It's just harder to it's just a little there's just a little bit of that Chargers stench that lingers around Justin Herbert, where like I'm a Herbert truther and don't feel like it's all his fault by any means, but in one game, you just wonder if maybe there's a little something that you just can't 100% trust the same way that I feel like Stafford, exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. There is that little weird thing about Justin Herbert. You know what I'm saying? He's got just, what do the kids say nowadays? The ick. There's just some sort of ick with Justin Herbert at some point in time. Watching him choke that game to the Jaguars and stuff. I know it's a different regime. I am high on the Chargers this year, though, but I understand I would definitely take Matthew Stafford and Jaden Daniels over Justin Herbert right now. But we all have to be reminded of C.J. Stroud, because C.J. Stroud in this ranking was an honorable mention. An honorable mention. He was number 7 last year, and he didn't even make the top 10 this year after his second year. So I think Jaden Daniels will have a lesser drop-off than Stroud, just because I trust his environment a little bit more. But I do think we have to keep that in mind. So if I'm playing like one game, I'm probably going to take Herbert over Jaden Daniels as well and just trust an older guy. But how long do we have to go before that answer is clearly Jaden Daniels? I think anything past one season, clearly Jaden Daniels over Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford. It's anything more than 1 year.
Does Jalen Hurts get a mention in the conversation here, given like he just won the Super Bowl and has
he came in at number 9 on this ranking, and I think that's fair. Probably. I don't know. It's weird because like he did it, but Lauren, don't we all kind of look at the Eagles and be like, yeah, like the level of your quarterback can be lower, the better your team is. And the Eagles are like an all-time stacked roster. So we all know that Jalen Hurts isn't quite as good as maybe some of the, like, was Jalen Hurts as good as Matthew Stafford when the Rams won? I don't know. The Mahomes Super Bowls, statistically, he's right there, but I just feel like we all can't lie to our eyes, or our lies can't lie to us. Like, we all see that Jalen Hurts is not as talented as a quarterback as these guys who we have discussed in front of him, even if he's more successful.
Yeah, I agree in the big picture. I just wonder, like, we've seen Jalen Hurts be special in moments. And it's like, if it's one game and you just need a quarterback to be a playmaker for you, that he's got that kind of like spark plug upside there to over the course of a season, absolutely he's way down in I mean, relatively way down, but like, and if you just need a gamer who's like, hey, it's fourth down and you need your quarterback to make a play, and it might be with his arms and it might be with his legs. You can't have Lamar Jackson. Like, Jalen Hurts is like right up there in that next conversation of like, yeah, maybe if I need to convert this 4th and 3, and you need to have a lot of different options for this opposing defense. Like, he gives me some different opportunities that maybe only gets it 7 out of 10 times, but those 7 out of 10 times can be really something special that even some of the other quarterbacks can't quite do.
Yeah, I think honestly, you talking about it right now, if I had one game, I'm going to take Hurts over Herbert. What have I ever seen Justin Herbert do in the clutch? Like, I know that he has more natural gifts maybe than Jalen Hurts, but who uses them better? I think that in the one game scenario, the one game rankings, yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I would probably give Jalen Hurts a little bit more credit. Here's the question, though. Jared Goff came in over Jalen Hurts. Are you taking Jared Goff over Jalen Hurts? Baker Mayfield was number 10. Who would you take, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, if you just had to pick a quarterback and play a game in your backyard?
I'm probably lower on Goff than a lot of people, and I try not to make a Lions bias, or like an anti-Lions bias, but to me, it's more of a Ben Johnson thing. Like, I feel like we've kind of known who Goff is, and what we've seen from Goff has been really his ceiling the last few seasons, and that's been a better than game manager, but not a game changer. Like, he's kind of somewhere in that middle, right? Where he's not being dragged across the finish line by a supporting cast. Like, he makes plays, but he mostly just takes care of the ball. Like, he's more than a touchdown guy, but his biggest thing is just like, hey, don't screw this up, and kind of let the offense and the receivers and everything. Like, he makes some nice throws for sure, but like, he's more fallible than a lot of these other guys. So to me, like, he deserves a mention in here because he's been so consistent and has been able to operate that offense at a high level. But if I'm just isolating quarterback talent and ability, I don't know that he's above any of these other guys on the list for me.
Yeah, I know this sounds crazy, but I would take Baker Mayfield over Jared Goff if I had to start my team. I think Baker has more of an ability to elevate his teammate than Goff does. But Goff, I mean, had a great season, deserves his credit. These rankings are so fun and interesting because football is such a complicated game. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host Lauren Cox, as we tell you every episode. Thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.